She says, I am teaching you how to love someone who has been hurt before. You nothing without my rules. Her ex ruined her, but she made me pay for it. I am a 31-year-old construction engineer, and I have been with my girlfriend Serafina for about 10 months now. I thought I was being a good, supportive partner, but I am starting to feel like I am drowning in someone else's past trauma, and I don't know how to handle it anymore. When we first started dating, Serafina was upfront about having a difficult relationship history. Her ex-boyfriend Dorian apparently put her through hell, cheating, lying, financial abuse, the whole nightmare. She told me she had never been able to trust anyone since then, but that she felt safe with me and wanted to try building something real. I was touched that she trusted me enough to be vulnerable about her past. I wanted to show her that not all men are like her ex, that she could trust me completely. So when she started asking me to do things to prove my love and commitment, I thought it was reasonable given what she had been through. It started small. She asked me to check in with her every few hours when I was at work because Dorian used to disappear for days without contact. She wanted access to my social media accounts because he used to hide his affairs online. She asked me to share my location with her because he was always lying about where he was. All of this seemed fair to me. She had been betrayed before, and these were small things I could do to help her feel secure. I had nothing to hide anyway. But over the months, the requests kept expanding. She wanted me to limit contact with female coworkers because you never know how these things start. She needed me to run my weekend plans by her first because spontaneous activities made her anxious. She asked me to give her access to my bank account for transparency since Dorian had hidden financial problems from her. Every request came with the same reasoning. If you really love me, this shouldn't be a problem. Dorian never wanted to be accountable to me, but you are different, right? The phrase, if you really love me, has become the soundtrack to our relationship. If I really love her, I will not mind checking in every 2 hours. If I really love her, I will understand why she needs to approve my friendships. If I really love her, I will prioritize her anxiety over my independence. I have been trying so hard to be understanding and supportive, but I am exhausted. I feel like I am constantly walking on eggshells, trying to prove I am not this Dorian guy I have never even met. I have given up friendships, changed my routine, restructured my entire life to accommodate her trauma responses. And the crazy part is, she frames all of this as being for my benefit too. I am helping you be the kind of partner I need, she says. I am teaching you how to love someone who has been hurt before. You nothing without my rules, but I am starting to feel suffocated. I used to be social and spontaneous. Now I plan every move around what might trigger her. I used to have close friendships. Now I barely see anyone because she needs so much reassurance and attention. Last week, I tried to have a gentle conversation about maybe loosening some of the restrictions as we build more trust. Her response was immediate tears and accusations that I was just like him and looking for ways to hurt her. The fact that you want more freedom proves you are planning something, she said. Dorian started the same way, asking for space so he could cheat. I am not Dorian. I have never given her any reason to distrust me. But apparently, that doesn't matter because Dorian poisoned the well for all future relationships. I love this woman, but I feel like I am in a relationship with her trauma instead of with her. Am I being unsupportive? Should I be more patient with her healing process? Or is this more than I should be expected to handle? How do you prove you are trustworthy to someone who has decided that trustworthiness itself is suspicious? Edit 1. Some people are asking if she is in therapy. She tried it briefly after her last relationship, but said the therapist didn't understand the complexity of her situation and stopped going. Edit 2. I realize some of this might sound controlling, but she frames everything as healing from trauma. When I express discomfort, she says I am not being supportive of her recovery process. Edit 3. Reading these responses is making me question things I thought were normal. Maybe I should talk to someone outside the situation. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Reading your comments was like having someone turn on the lights in a room I didn't realize had gotten dark. I decided to talk to my best friend Everett about everything, and that conversation changed my entire perspective. I met Everett for drinks after work yesterday and laid out everything that has been happening over the past 10 months. I explained about Serafina's past with Dorian, her anxiety about being hurt again, and all the ways I have been trying to accommodate her trauma. Everett listened without interrupting, but I could see his expression changing as I talked. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Dude," he finally said, "do you hear yourself right now?" "What do you mean?" "You just spent 20 minutes explaining why your girlfriend controls your schedule, monitors your communications, manages your friendships, and tracks your location. You are not describing trauma recovery. You are describing an abusive relationship that hit me like a slap." "But she is not abusive," I protested. "She has been hurt. She is scared of being betrayed again, and she is making that your problem instead of dealing with it herself," Everett said. "Trauma doesn't give you the right to control another person's life." He was right, and deep down I knew it. But hearing it said out loud was still jarring. "Think about it," Everett continued. "In 10 months, what has she done to actually heal from her trauma? Has she gone to therapy? Has she worked on building trust gradually? Or has she just found new ways to control you, so she doesn't have to face her fears?" The answer was obvious. She hadn't done any real work on healing. Instead, she had created a system where I had to constantly prove my trustworthiness while she never had to actually trust me. "The worst part," Everett said, "is that she has convinced you that accepting this treatment is proof of your love. That is manipulation, plain and simple." He was right about that too. Every conversation about boundaries or independence got turned back on me as evidence that I didn't really love her or understand her trauma. After talking with Everett, I started paying closer attention to the patterns in our relationship, and what I saw made me sick. She doesn't just ask me to accommodate her trauma, she punishes me when I don't do it enthusiastically enough. If I hesitate before agreeing to check in every 2 hours, I get a lecture about how Dorian used to resist accountability too. If I seem tired after a day of constant communication, I get accused of making her trauma a burden. She has created a system where I am always proving my innocence instead of being trusted until I give her a reason not to trust me. And the goalposts keep moving. No amount of transparency or accommodation is ever enough because the real issue isn't trust. It is control. I realized that I haven't just been accommodating her healing process. I have been enabling her to avoid healing by creating an environment where she never has to confront her fears or develop real coping mechanisms. But here is what really opened my eyes. I asked Everett if he thought I had changed over the past 10 months, and his answer was devastating. "You used to be confident and outgoing," he said. "You used to make your own decisions without checking with anyone first. You used to have friends over, go out spontaneously, live your own life. Now you are anxious and second-guessing yourself constantly. You ask permission for things that used to be automatic. You have become a smaller version of yourself." He was right. In trying to prove I wasn't like Dorian, I had lost myself completely. I decided I needed to have a serious conversation with Serafina about establishing healthier boundaries and encouraging her to get professional help for her trauma. That conversation happened today, and it didn't go well. When I gently suggested that some of our patterns might be unhealthy and that she might benefit from therapy, she immediately became defensive. "So now you think I am crazy? You think my trauma responses are unreasonable?" I tried to explain that I wasn't calling her crazy, but that I was feeling overwhelmed by constantly having to prove my trustworthiness, and that maybe we could work together on building genuine trust. "If you were trustworthy, you wouldn't mind proving it," she said. "The fact that you are complaining about accountability shows you have something to hide." I pointed out that in 10 months I had never given her a single reason to doubt me, and that maybe it was time to start from a foundation of trust rather than suspicion. That is when she said something that made everything click. "I never forced you to do any of this. You chose to prove your love this way. If you want to stop being supportive, that is your choice. But don't blame me for your decisions." The gaslighting was so blatant, it actually took my breath away. She had spent 10 months manipulating me into increasingly restrictive behaviors by threatening emotional consequences if I didn't comply. But now that I was pushing back, suddenly, none of it was her idea. I am done. I cannot be in a relationship where I am constantly paying for another man's crimes, and where my attempts to establish basic boundaries are treated as evidence of guilt. Edit 1. Several people have pointed out that this is indeed emotional abuse, and reading about trauma bonding has been eye-opening. Edit 2. For those asking why I put up with this for so long, When someone frames their control as vulnerability and healing, it is easy to mistake manipulation for trust building. Edit 3. I am planning to end this relationship. I just need to figure out how to do it safely, given how she reacts to any perceived rejection. Update 2. I broke up with Serafina 3 days ago, and her reaction has been enlightening. And by enlightening, I mean absolutely insane in ways that confirmed every suspicion I had about her real motivations. After my conversation with Everett and that final fight where she denied manipulating me, I knew I had to end things. I spent a few days planning how to do it safely. Everett had warned me that people who are controlling often escalate when they lose control. I decided to do it at her apartment so I could leave when I was done, rather than having to get her to leave my place. I went over Sunday afternoon and told her we needed to talk. I kept it simple and direct. I told her that I didn't think we were compatible long-term, that I needed more independence in a relationship, and that I thought we both deserved to be with someone who met our needs without compromising who we were. Her initial reaction was exactly what I expected: tears, accusations that I was abandoning her just like Dorian, and desperate promises that she could change. But when she realized I was serious and wasn't going to be manipulated back into the relationship, she showed me who she really was underneath all that performed vulnerability. The tears stopped, like someone had flipped a switch, and she looked at me with pure rage. "You are just like every other man," she said. "You pretended to care about my trauma, but you were just waiting for an excuse to leave." I tried to explain that I did care about her healing, but that I couldn't sacrifice my entire identity to accommodate her avoidance of therapy and real recovery work. "I gave you everything," she continued, her voice getting louder. "I trusted you with my deepest fears, and you are throwing it back in my face." "You didn't trust me," I said. "You controlled me." "There is a difference." That is when she completely lost it. "I made you into a better man," she screamed. "Before me, you were just another selfish asshole who didn't know how to be accountable to a partner. I taught you how to be considerate, how to communicate, how to prioritize a relationship, and this is how you repay me." The delusion was breathtaking. In her mind, systematically isolating me from friends, monitoring my every move, and demanding constant proof of loyalty was teaching me to be a better partner. But it got worse. "You know what?" she said with this cold, calculating look. "You are going to realize what you lost. You are going to try dating other women, and they are going to seem shallow and selfish compared to me, because they will not care about building something real with you. They will not put in the work to make you a better person like I did." Then came the threats. "I hope you know I am going to tell everyone the truth about you, about how you used my trauma to manipulate me into trusting you, then abandoned me when I needed you most, about how you pretended to be supportive but were actually looking for ways to cheat and lie." She was literally describing her own behavior and projecting it onto me. "Your friends, your family, everyone is going to know what kind of man you really are. They are going to know you are just like Dorian." I left while she was still ranting, and I haven't responded to any of her attempts to contact me since. But her prediction about telling everyone the truth turned out to be accurate. She has been calling my friends and family. The stories she is telling are wild. According to her version, I pursued her despite her vulnerability, convinced her to trust me, then became controlling and demanding when she needed support for her trauma. She is claiming I isolated her from her friends' projection much, and that I broke up with her because she wouldn't let me cheat. Fortunately, most people know me well enough to see through the lies. My sister called yesterday to tell me Serafina had reached out to her on social media with a long message about how I take advantage of vulnerable women. My sister's response was, "That doesn't sound like my brother, but it sounds exactly like someone who would try to manipulate me into believing it." Everett has been amazing through all this. When I told him about her threats to destroy my reputation, he said, "Good. Let her show everyone who she really is. The people who matter will see through it, and the people who don't weren't worth keeping anyway." He was right. A few mutual friends have reached out to get my side of the story, and when I explain the actual dynamic of our relationship, they are horrified. Several people have admitted they were worried about me but didn't know how to bring it up. The most telling thing is how she is handling the breakup. Someone who was genuinely traumatized and heartbroken would be sad, maybe angry, but focused on healing and moving forward. Instead, she has launched a full-scale campaign to destroy my reputation and force me back into the relationship through social pressure. That is not the behavior of someone who loved me. That is the behavior of someone who is angry about losing control of me. Edit 1. For those asking about legal concerns, I have documented everything and have witnesses to her harassment. If it escalates, I am prepared to take action. Edit 2. Several people have pointed out that her reaction proves she was never actually traumatized by her ex in the way she claimed. Someone who is truly afraid of abandonment wouldn't try to destroy someone who left them. They would be focused on healing and understanding why relationships keep failing. Edit 3. A few people have asked if I feel bad for abandoning someone with trauma. I don't. Having trauma doesn't give you the right to traumatize other people. She had options for healing that didn't involve controlling me. Final update: it has been exactly 1 week since I ended things with Serafina, and I wanted to give a final update on how everything has played out. This community helped me see clearly when I was too deep in manipulation to recognize it, and you deserve to know how this ended. The harassment campaign Serafina launched after our breakup has been both disturbing and revealing. She has contacted nearly everyone in my life with increasingly wild stories about our relationship. But the pattern has been consistent. I am somehow both a controlling manipulator and a cheating liar who took advantage of her vulnerability. The stories keep evolving too, which has actually worked in my favor. First, I was controlling and wouldn't let her have friends. Then I was a cheater who was sleeping with coworkers. Then I was financially abusive and wouldn't let her spend money. Then I was emotionally abusive and would gaslight her about her trauma responses. The problem with pathological liars is they cannot keep their stories straight. When she tells my sister I am controlling, then tells my coworker I am a cheater, then tells my neighbor I am financially abusive, people start noticing the inconsistencies. But the most revealing thing happened yesterday. My coworker Jake called me to tell me about a strange interaction he had had. Serafina had reached out to him on social media claiming I had been talking about him behind his back and that she was worried about how I treat my friends. She tried to convince him that I was unreliable and manipulative and that he should be careful about trusting me. Jake's response was perfect. If Callum has a problem with me, he will tell me directly. The fact that you are trying to turn his friends against him tells me everything I need to know about who the real manipulator is. That is when I realized her harassment isn't random or emotional. It is strategic. She is not trying to tell people the truth about me. She is trying to systematically destroy my support network, so I will have nowhere to turn and might come back to her. It is the same isolation tactic she used in the relationship, just applied externally now. But her plan is backfiring spectacularly. Instead of turning people against me, she is showing everyone exactly who she really is. My friends and family are getting to see firsthand the kind of manipulative behavior I was dealing with for 10 months. My mother called me yesterday to say, "I understand now why you looked so tired and stressed when you were with her. Normal people don't act like this when relationships end." Even better, I found out through a mutual friend that this isn't the first time she has done this. Apparently, she pulled similar stunts when her relationship with Dorian ended, spreading lies, trying to turn people against him, playing the victim while behaving like a predator. Which makes me wonder, how much of her story about Dorian was actually true? Was he really the abusive, cheating, controlling ex she described? Or was he just another guy who tried to set boundaries with her and got destroyed for it? I am starting to suspect that Dorian wasn't her abuser. He was her previous victim. And she has been using his abuse of her as a template for how to abuse me. The real kicker? Yesterday I got a message from someone I didn't recognize. A guy named Marcus who said he had heard about my situation through mutual friends. Turns out he dated Serafina about 2 years ago, right after her relationship with Dorian ended. According to Marcus, she used the exact same playbook with him that she used with me. Dorian had traumatized her, and she needed Marcus to prove his love by accepting increasingly controlling behavior. When Marcus finally set boundaries, she launched the same reputation destruction campaign against him. She has been using Dorian as her excuse to abuse people for years. He told me, "I am just glad you got out before she completely destroyed your sense of reality." This pattern has probably been going on for years. She finds decent guys, uses her sob story about past trauma to manipulate them into accepting abuse, then destroys them when they try to leave. It is predatory behavior disguised as vulnerability. But here is the beautiful thing. Her current behavior is so obviously unhinged that she is actually inoculating people against her future lies. Everyone who has witnessed this meltdown now knows exactly what she is capable of. As for me, I feel like I can breathe again for the first time in months. I had no idea how much mental energy I was spending on managing her emotions and walking on eggshells. Now that energy is mine again. I have reconnected with friends I had lost touch with. I am making plans without having to clear them with anyone. I am remembering what it feels like to be trusted instead of constantly suspected. I am rediscovering parts of my personality that I had suppressed to avoid triggering her. Most importantly, I am learning to trust my instincts again. For 10 months, I second-guessed every feeling I had because she had convinced me that my discomfort with her behavior was evidence of my own character flaws. Now I understand that my discomfort was my intuition trying to protect me. Love doesn't require you to prove it constantly. Trust builds over time through consistent behavior, not through surveillance and control, and someone who truly loves you will not threaten to destroy your life when you try to leave them. I am 31, single, and starting fresh. But I am also stronger, wiser, and more aware of red flags than I have ever been. I know what real love looks like now, and it is not what I had with Serafina. As for her, I heard she has already moved on to someone new. A friend of a friend saw her on a dating app with a profile that mentions being a survivor of emotional abuse looking for someone who understands trauma. I feel bad for whoever falls for that act next. But there is nothing I can do except hope they figure it out faster than I did. Some people are meant to teach you what you don't want in life. Serafina taught me that I would rather be alone than be with someone who makes me smaller. That is a lesson worth learning, even if the tuition was brutal. Edit 1. Several people have asked about my healing process. I am planning to talk to a therapist. Not because I am broken, but because I want to understand how I got so deep into accepting treatment I never should have tolerated. Edit 2. To the few people saying I should give her another chance because trauma makes people act irrationally. Trauma doesn't excuse systematic abuse. And her behavior after our breakup proves this wasn't about trauma recovery. It was about control. Edit 3. For anyone wondering if they are in a similar situation, healthy relationships don't require you to constantly prove your love, give up your independence, or accept monitoring and control. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is.